Okay, so we modeled the spread of misinformation in a 2D uh, structured representation of a social media platform or social network of some kind. I'm going to walk through the cells of the notebook so you get a basic idea of what's happening, and then I'll show some animations. Um, so this is the cell that actually runs the CA and generates all the information. It just finds the neighborhood for each cell at each time step, where we're using k equals 2, and then it calls this actual state update function, which is defined down here. Um, and in each cell, we store a value for curiosity 1 to 5, a value for info quality 1 to 5, and a status, which can take any of these 7 values. So in total, there are 5 times 5 times 7 equals 175 states in the CA, which is a lot, but it's pretty tractable to understand if you look at them in terms of these variables. And so the basic model is that curiosity is this parameter that won't change for an individual throughout time. And if someone is very uncurious and looks at a piece of misinformation, they'll just accept it as true and spread it. And if someone is very curious, fact checker, they're going to do a bunch of research and be much more likely to reject and not spread a piece of misinformation. And as misinformation spreads through an individual, it ticks down their sort of understanding of the truth, understanding of reality. So 5 is like you're very well connected to reality, you understand the truth, and 1 is you don't know what's going on. And then the status is just how we keep track of the mechanics of the spread of these misinformation, memes, or lies. So inactive is kind of the default state where you're kind of browsing social media, but you haven't seen anything that catches your eye. Active is you have accepted as truth some lie, and then these are just refractory states to kind of model the sort of analogous to recovery time, but just maybe it's how bored you are of social media. And then you get down to here, and then you go back to browsing, and maybe you see something, maybe you don't. And we have a couple update rules. So the basic idea is depending on how much misinformation is circulating in your neighborhood, your immediate neighbors and the people right outside of that, that's the one major influence on how likely you are to get infected with a lie. And then it also scales depending on your curiosity. So if you're very curious, you will be more likely to reject a lie. And then if you are one of these like least informed people, you have a small chance to spawn a lie. And then if you are actively spreading something, that only lasts for one time step, and then you go through this refractory phase, and you end up back inactive and just looking at social media. So the idea is we're going to build different initial conditions. So we're going to set up different structures of where are the curious people, where are the uncurious people, and where are the informed people, where are the uninformed people, and see what happens. That's these cells. And so the first case, there's a lot going on, but basically, you want to think about these as being overlaid. And so on the right, this is the structural feature, the curiosity, where I guess the light region is that's if you are, the light of science shines there. You're very curious, and then the dark is, you'll just accept anything you see. And then over here, the darker the square, the more truth is there, the more someone understands the truth. And so in this case, on the right are the people who don't do any fact checking, and we just kind of watch and see that connection to the truth fades away faster on the right. So we've sort of basically validated the model. Then we have a more complicated case. So here, this little ring is fact checkers. So these people are curious and they start out with a strong understanding of the truth. And then inside the moat, there's this island of people who will accept anything they see as the truth, but they start out well informed. And then outside of that are people who are misinformed and just accept anything they see as the truth. So if we run this, we see a bunch of misinformation spreading on the outside at first, and then slowly or pretty quickly, it breaks through the moat and starts spreading inside. And you end up with the sort of corruption of this island of sort of vulnerable users. Fact checkers did not hold off the misinformation in this case. So the next thing is, well, what if we had a thicker moat to try to do a better job protecting people? And stepping up the size of the moat by one kind of slows down the spread, but it's still going to break through and spread on the inside, and the vulnerable people will become misinformed. So this one's running for twice as long, so you can see the progression. And eventually, the fact checkers remain pretty well informed, but they don't protect the population in this case either. And finally, we have this case, which is sort of the reverse, where we have in the center, we have these worst case people who are not curious and not well informed. And then we have a sort of firewall of fact checkers, which is even wider than before. It's 4 cells wide, who are informed. And then outside of that, a general population of people who are well informed at first, but don't check their information very well. And if we play this one out, as expected, misinformation starts spreading on the inside. And then you can see it breaks out, and with the parameters that this model is using, it's kind of working like the flu, where it seems to become pretty self-sustaining once it breaks through. I think it's a little hard to tell to what degree there's continuous reinfection versus just an endemic sort of spread of misinformation out here. But yeah, even a moat of this size isn't enough to protect people. So this is sort of a toy model. What I think would make it a lot more interesting, it might be the next step, would be to add a mechanism for people to become more informed, because right now this is very pessimistic. People can only become less informed. And then you might start to be able to ask questions like, for what critical width of the firewall or moat can a vulnerable population, or a majority of social media users who are just casual, how wide of a fact checking firewall do you need to keep them protected in the limit?